The Kentucky Small Business Development Center is a statewide, nationally accredited program that provides no-cost, confidential business coaching and training services. Whether you're just getting started or are ready to expand, we have the tools, resources, and expertise to help you succeed. We're part of a national network, America's SBDC, with over 1,000 centers across the nation. To learn more about how the Kentucky SBDC can serve you, please visit KentuckySBDC.com or email us at info@KentuckySBDC.com. You can also reach us by calling 888-414-7232. Thank you for joining today's webinar. The chat feature is available for you to ask questions and interact with today's speaker. Please take a moment to introduce yourself and where you are watching from today.
Welcome, everybody. I'm Dave Betkin. Welcome to another Wednesday webinar. And as always, I'm really glad you're here. And if this is your first time, welcome. If it's your 100th time, glad to see you back. And just to reiterate, as always, if you just look down at the bottom of your screen, you'll see the toolbar there. If you don't see it, just kind of hover over it and it'll pop up. And you'll see the chat button. Just if you wouldn't mind, just hit that and let me know that you can hear me and see me and everything's working correctly. Just say hello, tell us your name and where you're watching from. It's always interesting to hear that. We get people sometimes from all over the world. We had, yesterday we had a couple folks from Canada join us, which was super fun to see. So just pop in there and say hello. And see, we've got a couple folks coming in. There's Christina from Hartford, Kentucky. Hello, how are you? Good to see you. Anybody else want to jump in real quick? There we go. Kaliza, nice to see you. Yeah, it'll be recorded. There's Tracy from Lexington. How are you, Tracy? It's great. Well, thanks for joining, everybody. I have a great guest today. Cathy Fyock has been my good friend for many years. And Cathy, if you don't mind, I'm gonna tell our story from my perspective.
Okay, good.
So you and I met, I don't know, 8 or 10 years ago at a GLI event. I asked you to speak to a group, and you were an HR professional at that time, and you did a great job speaking with HR and stuff. And then it was a number of months after that, you called you again and asked if you would speak again. And you said, well, I'm super busy now because I wrote this book and it's really taken off. So I'm on this speaking circuit and I really don't have time for you right now, Dave. And then when I called you up again, you said, well, I'm not doing HR anymore. This book thing has really taken off and I'm helping people write books just like I did. And so that business that you do now as a writing coach, and you and I have worked a little bit together, has just launched a whole new career with you. I mean, you've written 11 books now, and you've helped like 200 or 300 people write their own books and have them published. And I mean, that is just such an impressive thing. And what I really like about what you do now is, when you say, I want to write a book, it is a daunting task, but you have just a specific process that you can use and get this done super easy, be published, and it'll take a lot of work actually, and some time, but it can be done and anybody can do it. And I don't know if I stole a lot of what you're going to talk about today, but I just always like to share that story because it's such a good story. So welcome,
It is.
Cathy.
It's true, and it's all true. Thank you so much, David. Yeah, it is. And what's cool about this is a lot of people say, well, what can a book really do for me? And it can not only help your business take off, but if you want to start something new or go in a completely new direction, it can absolutely help you do that. Because when I started as a book coach, my only credential was that I had authored some books. And what I did was write a book about how to write a book, which took my career in this completely new direction. And it has been the best thing that I've ever done. It has been the most satisfying. I love working with primarily entrepreneurs who want to write a book as a strategy for growing their business. And I think there's no better tool to help you grow your business than having a book. Because it positions you as the authority. I mean, there is this link between author and authority, and it makes you literally the one who wrote the book on it. So it gives you power and credibility and visibility unlike anything else. So I'm a huge, huge fan of entrepreneurs writing their books. And even short of that, just entrepreneurs writing can be such a powerful strategy. And that's why I'm so excited that you've invited me back here again today, because I think for anyone wanting to grow their business, establish their business, you don't have to write a book, although that would be awesome. And you can do that. But I'm here to talk with you about the fact that you can write blog posts. And if you do it in a strategic and focused and disciplined way, you can start writing a blog post and at the end of a year, have all the content for your book. And that's what's so cool about my strategy. So I outlined that in one of my books, Blog to Book, Repurposing Content to Discover the Book You've Already Written. But that's basically the principles that are in all of my books on writing. And you're right, now I have many more books on writing than I did before in my first career as an HR professional. So yeah, I'm completely sold on the value of writing. But some of you may be thinking like, it's so hard. It's so hard. And let me just say right up front, it is hard work to write a book. It is hard work to write a blog. It is hard work to write. I'm not one of these people that love writing and comes easily for me. I want you to hear that loud and clear. Sometimes I give a talk and the very first thing I say is, you know, some of you may be thinking, oh, well, she can write 11 books because she loves to write. No, I've written 11 books in spite of the fact I don't like to write and it doesn't come easy for me. But I think that makes me a good book coach in that you can do it too. I mean, it's just hard work. It's just hard work and discipline and all of that. So David, jump in at any point in time if you want to redirect me or give me a question or point me in a new direction. I'm happy to do that, but I'm also happy just to take it and run with it if you're ready for me to do that.
All right, I'm sorry, I'm having trouble with my computer.
That's okay.
Yeah, I do want to say though that if you have any questions and comments for Cathy, and feel free to jump in and put it in the chat. And I can see the chat. We had to change things a little bit this week for various reasons, but you may not be able to see what others say in the chat, but I can see it. So put your comments and questions in there. We'll have a good discussion with Cathy, and we got some good stuff coming up. So Cathy, I'm just going to kind of jump in the background here, not to, so people just, you know, you can have the spotlight here. I want you to share everything we're going to share about today.
Okay, great. Well, jump in at any point in time, or if there's a question that someone poses that you want to have me talk a little bit more about, I'm happy to do that. So just let me know.
All right.
Well, good. Well, what I'd like to do in our time together today is not so much talk to you about writing, but actually give you the time and the space and a little direction to help you begin writing what might be your next post, your next little bit of writing a professional journal article or content piece that will help you grow and promote your business. I guess the first thing for me just to say, it seems sort of obvious to me, but maybe it isn't to you, that writing is a fabulous way to advertise what it is that you do, whatever your business is, whether you are a coach or a consultant, or you're a plumber, or you're an electrician, or you're a realtor, whatever you might be, whatever your expertise is that allows you to have your own business, your customers likely need to know who you are, what you do, and there's probably a lot of questions that you answer all the time for your customers, or there's something that they need to know that positions you in a way that has them saying, I want to do business with that individual. And that's what writing will do for you. It's free. It doesn't cost you a thing. There's so many venues out there that are looking for content. Not only can you put the content that you write on your own website, which can be powerful, you can put it out on social media. There's, especially on LinkedIn, there's wonderful opportunities for you to publish little short pieces about what it is that you do, the questions that your clients most want to have answered. So there's opportunities there. But beyond that, there are newsletters, publications of all sorts and shapes that are looking for content. I know when I was back in my HR world, and that's what I did before I was a book coach, I was a human resources consultant. And I went to one of the human resources conferences, and I went out in the exhibit hall, and I went around to talk with all of the publications that were looking for content, that published content on a regular basis. And I went around asking them one question, and the question was, are you looking for content? Are you looking for folks who might write short pieces for your newsletter, for your journal, for your whatever it was? And what I found was 100% of the people that I asked, and that I continue to ask, they say, yes, we are always looking for great content. We are looking for ways to educate our readers about your topic. And yes, we would welcome your content. So let me just say right now, if you're thinking, oh, where would I put this? Where would I? There are so many places that would have you publish. I know in my HR world, I've published for a number of the different publications, the HR Professionals, HR Executive, HR Magazine. Plus, there are industry niches that have their own publication. I regularly wrote for the, there was a publication for hospitality, HR folks. I mean, there was niches and markets for all sorts of folks. So if you're thinking that you have to be well known or you have to be an established writer, that's absolutely not true. You have to just start writing. In fact, a story about my very first time writing for a publication, I was going into the Kentucky Restaurant Association. My background had been at Kentucky Fried Chicken, and I'd worked there in HR. And when I started my own business, I thought, well, the Kentucky Restaurant Association should hire me as a speaker for their conference. So I went to speak to the executive director. And as I was waiting for the executive director, I was sitting there and noticed that there was a publication sitting on the desk of the table in the waiting room. And I picked it up and I realized that it was a publication of the Kentucky Restaurant Association, and they had articles there. So one of the first questions when I met with the executive director was, I said, are you ever looking for content for your publication? And she said, always, always. And I said, well, what are the how many words are you looking for? What topics? And she said, basically, what you see here is what we're looking for. Kind of shortish articles, less than 1,000 words, a page or two. That's what we're looking for. And anything that our people have questions and comments about are things that we're looking for. So I wrote my first article way back then, and I had no writing experience except for, in the course of my job. And I was published, and that got me started. And from that article, I found that I could get an amazing amount of business. Now, what's interesting is I don't think that the Kentucky Restaurant Association ever hired me as a speaker. I don't believe they did. But what was interesting, they carried my article that I wrote, and I got a call maybe a couple months later from the Missouri Restaurant Association. And they said, yeah, we'd like to have you come and speak. And it was, my topic at the time was on staffing shortages and how to hire, which is of course a great topic right now. But they said, we'd love for you to come to Missouri to speak. We saw your article. And I said, oh, you saw my article in the Kentucky publication. And they said, no, it was in our publication, Missouri publication. And I said, I don't remember writing. Well, they share content pieces because they're always looking for content. And so I ended up getting a speaking engagement, a full fee speaking engagement from the Missouri Restaurant Association, from the Canadian Restaurant Association, from a number of different organizations. And it was a wonderful way for me to focus and begin my speaking business. So the moral of the story is right. And because so many of these different organizations are looking for content, chances are that this will be a wonderful way to spread the word about what it is that you do. So having given you all of this exciting information about the power of writing and what it can do for your business, whether you're a speaker, consultant, coach, or use your expertise to position the services and products that you sell, and I dare say that you all are in that boat. Let me give you some ideas. And what I want to do in our time together today is not just talk, but actually give you some time to do some exercises and thinking about what it is that you might write. So I want to approach this in a couple of ways. And what I'm really hoping to do is at the end of our time together, you are going to have a list of blogs that you can write over the course of a year or the course of 6 months or whatever it might be that are going to help position you and your business in a way that is free and is absolutely guaranteed to bring you results. So let me start by saying, I think the best way to start, an easy way to start, is to make a list of questions. And here's what I would like for you to do in our first exercise together. And I'm going to give you some exercises, and I'm going to give you like a couple of minutes to do these exercises. And what I'm hoping you're going to do is pull out your notebook or get to where you can still keep the webinar open, but go to a place where you can write and take some notes. And this will be a working session, and you're going to walk away at the end of our time together with some concrete ideas for writing to grow your business. So what I'd like for you to do, first of all, is think about the questions that you are commonly asked and that you answer all the time for your clients. So that's the first sort of category of question. What is the question that you're asked all the time? What is it when you onboard new clients that you have to answer all the time? What makes you different? What makes you unique? What is it about you? What is it about the process of using your products and services that it's important for folks to understand? Or you can also think about what are the questions that sometimes folks ask you and you think, wow, that is such a great question. Not too long ago, one of my clients called me up and said, Cathy, I think I've done a really good job. I did a presentation, but now the client wants to use my content without me. And I'm worried that I'm losing control and that I haven't done a good enough job in protecting my intellectual property. And I thought, wow, that's a great question. And I thought, that's a great question for a blog post. So that was a trigger for me to know when my clients come to me or prospects come to me and ask me a really great question, I got to write it down, and that becomes the prompt that I will use to write my next blog post. So in this first exercise, I just want you to think of questions that your clients typically ask you, new customers typically ask, What are the things that are important for folks to know that that you've been asked? So what I want you to do in this next 2 minutes, you're just going to brainstorm questions. You're not going to answer the questions. You're just going to write the questions. Okay. So I'm gonna get my trusty phone here because there is a great little device on here that I love for my writing exercises. It's a timer, and I go to the clock, and I'm going to put just 2 minutes on the clock. 2 minutes can be an amazing amount of time to write. There's something about 2 minutes and timed writing that it doesn't allow you to overthink. It just makes you write. So your goal is to write as many questions as you possibly can that your clients or prospects would ask you about your products and services. So what I'm going to do is put 2 minutes on the clock, and your time begins now. Go. Okay, your time is up. So what I'd like to do now is to have you reflect on this list of questions and look at the list of questions. Hopefully you got 5, 6 questions, maybe more. Whatever you were able to generate in 2 minutes, this is just a start. I'd love for you to keep this list someplace close. I have a notebook that I travel with. I keep it by my side. And what I'll do is, if I'm working on something like this, I'll start a list of questions. And as I think of additional questions, I'll add those to the list. So keep a list of running questions of good topics that your clients and prospects want to know about, want to learn more about. So keep a notebook. I keep one with me, like I say, almost at all time. And then I've now started carrying something in my purse that's little that I can jot ideas and transfer those as I'm wanting to expand that list. But let me ask you the question now. You've got this list and you've started this list and you're going to build on this list, but what can you do with this list? Well, I would suggest that there's a whole bunch of things that you can do with this list. The first and foremost is each one of these is a great topic for a blog post. Some folks have said it's so hard to sit down in front of a blank screen and then think about, I have to write something. What do I write? Where do I start? Well, if you are starting with a question that your client or prospect has, then it's super easy just to give the answer, to answer the question. And I think that this is a much better way to start writing than to just start writing. So start with a question that your client has and start by answering that question. And the beautiful thing is your book or your blog post or whatever can simply be the question, and that becomes the title, and then your post becomes the answer. If you're putting this into a book, the question becomes the heading or subheading, and the content that the response becomes the content or the narrative that you have in your book or article. So it's a great way for you to get going and to not feel overwhelmed, because a lot of times when I start talking with folks about books, it's like we can just get totally overwhelmed. So just think about this as, I'm just going to write a blog first. I'm going to write a post, because by writing a post, I can get visibility for what it is that I do. So think about the questions that you've been answered, or the problems that you've solved. If you have been thinking about a great solution that you were able to create for a client, you might turn that into, well, what was the problem? What was the question? And then position what it is that you did. These are really mini case studies. I was talking with one of my authors the other day, and we were saying that she needed to write more stories in her book. And what she wrote me was not, she did not write stories. And I said, really, what you want in a story and what will make your writing come to life is first a kind of a view of the situation or task, the environment. What was the problem? What was the problem that needed to be solved? The next part is, what action did you take to solve that problem? And then the third component is, what happened? What was the result? How was the problem solved? How did that change the trajectory of your business, of what was going on? How did it turn the problem around? So a beginning, a middle, and end, a problem, an action, and results. That's a great formula. So if you, and it really is a formula for like a little mini case study. And our clients and customers love case studies, because what I'm finding with my clients, and I bet you're finding this with yours, is one of them sees a situation or a challenge that someone else faced, and they're thinking, that's my problem too. So by addressing the needs and concerns of one client, you are meeting the needs of a larger community as well. So think about the problems that you solve, the questions that your clients come to you with. So this is a great way to get started. Great way to get started. These could also then ultimately be the chapters in a book, but we're getting ahead of ourselves there. But I just want to give you a glimpse of how these questions might serve you going forward. Let me have you take a slightly different, well, let me just pause here and see, are there any questions? Are there any issues that you are thinking, I don't quite see how this works, or maybe some of you have an experience that you might like to share in the chat. So please go to the chat if you'd like to ask a question here, or
Cathy, we do have one question that popped up. It's kind of like on the topic we're talking about from Kaliza. She says, what are some ideas of what our initial first post for a life coaching business? I mean, what media types should she use?
What, I'm sorry.
What media types or media channels would you use for her blogs?
I think a great one, first of all, start with your own website. If you have your own website, you probably would love to have content that goes onto that website on a regular basis that changes. So that's number one. Number two, LinkedIn is a great resource. Most business people, if you are an entrepreneur, you probably have a LinkedIn account, and it's a great place to promote what it is that you're doing. So that's an easy, cheap, free way to get going, is posting content on LinkedIn. next, I mean, Facebook. If your clients are on Facebook, perhaps that's the place. It depends on where your clients are as to where you go from there. But you might want to think about what are the publications, what are the newsletters, what are the things that what are the places your clients go to get educated. For example, back when I was working in the HR world, I thought about all of the organizations that would where my clients were regularly reading and going to for information. So I thought about the Society for Human Resource Management. I thought about local chapters of SHRM. I thought of state conferences for SHRM. I thought of the Association for Talent Development. And then, of course, not only are those associations ones that may be looking for content just generally, they may be looking for speakers at conferences, they may be looking for articles for their publications. Now, almost every association, in addition to having some print opportunities, there may be online opportunities as well. So think about those. And then think about all of the publications that you or your clients as a part of that organization read regularly. So for sharing my HR experience, there was a publication at the time, HR Executive. There was HR Professional, there was HR Magazine, there was, and then there were some more scholarly types of publications. So those are the things that you should be thinking about. What are the things that your client reads? Where do they go to for their information? And is there a way to partner with that organization to offer content? Because chances are, if unless there are professionals on staff for that that organization, they are looking for content. They are looking for folks like you who can offer great content. So that's a great question. Are there any other questions, David, at this point? I'm not hearing you, David, so.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, no, I think that's it for the moment.
Okay, good. Well, if there's anything else that you want me to touch on too, just let me know that.
Okay.
Great. Okay, well, let's keep going then. And now that we've thought of questions and potential answers, let's do a quick exercise where we'll do a 2-minute exercise. And I want you to take one of the questions that you wrote just a moment ago, and I want you to start writing a response. And you can do this in a couple of ways. You can just think of writing some words or phrases that would highlight some of the ways that you might respond. So you don't have to write a complete sentence or complete ideas, just to jot down things that could be in a bulleted list or that would spark your ideas later. You could write a story. Maybe a story comes to mind in which you helped solve that problem for a client. So you can start writing the story, or you can just start answering it as you would if someone came to you and asked you that question, looking for your professional advice. So what I want to do is, again, give you a 2-minute time period just to jot down some ideas, and they can be in many different forms or formats, but something that will work for you, because this will be the start of what you can then take and flesh out into your next blog post. So once again, 2 minutes are going on the clock and your time begins now. Go. Okay, your time is up. What I'm hoping that that time allowed you is to see that you can actually get quite a bit done in a couple of minutes. A lot of my authors come to me saying, oh, the biggest hurdle to me writing is time to write. And after doing a couple of these 2-minute exercises, and if you keep doing these timed writing exercises, you'll find that you become more and more proficient to where time is really not your issue. It's making it a priority, it's putting it on your calendar, it's doing other things like stepping into your thought leadership. That may be the hardest part of this, much harder than finding the time to do it, because in all reality, it doesn't take long to answer a question that is typically asked to us by our clients or prospects. It's just making the time and putting it on your calendar to make it happen. Okay, so what we're going to do now, unfortunately, if we were here together in the room, I would have some of you share what you wrote or your ahas, but I'm sure many of you have realized that this was a great way to get started and gave you some good content or good practice at getting practice in developing your content. So let's move on to a different exercise. And this is one, because most of us would agree that it's great to at least monthly have some content that goes out, fresh content that goes out to our clients. So I make the commitment that once a month, I'm going to have some bit of content that goes out there. And one of the ways I do that is to have this list of questions, and I'm always looking for content. But the other way you can do it is look at it thematically. And this may work for you. And this is a way to develop content that you can repurpose, reuse time and time again. Because as I said before, writing for me is very, very hard work. So we want to develop content that we can use again and again and again. So I'm going to share with you an idea for creating a thematic approach that will have you at least writing once a month for a blog post or some content piece that you can put out to your clients. So what I'd like for you to do is first get in your piece of paper, write the name of each of the months, January, February, March, April, May, etc. And what I want you to do is next to that month, write down the what you think of when you think of that month. So for example, January might be new beginnings or New Year's resolutions or new starts. Or if you're in the heating and business, it may be about keeping warm or fighting winter's cold. So think about it in terms of what's true for your business. But just start by writing what is the theme for that month. And you might start with a couple of different themes. So that's what I want you to do first. January, I'm thinking of new beginnings. February, I often think about Valentine's Day or President's Day. If you need ideas for this, you can also go to Google and look at calendar days or calendar months and get ideas for things that are happening during that month. If you're thinking about April, let's see, no, I forgot March. March, you might think about St. Patty's Day. You might think about spring. You might think about something that's pertinent for your own business. You get the idea. So I want you to go through each of the months and write just an idea very, very quickly. So I'm going to give you just one more minute to finish this list by month of what you think of. So I'm going to put 1 minute on the clock and your time begins now. Okay, your time is up. Now that you've created this naming of the months and some theme, what I'd like for you to go through and say, what is the thematic issue that matters most to my clients? And I'll give you an example. For November, I think of Thanksgiving, and I think about how can we say thank you? How can we say thank you to our clients? How can we say thank you to those in our lives? So as someone who is writing for authors and aspiring authors, I might take the topic of writing your acknowledgements page in your book. And that might be the theme for November, is saying thank you in your book to those who've helped you. You see how I've made that, that extension of relating the month to a theme that matters to your clients or that matters in your industry. Another way that I have done this over the years is when I think of September, I think of back to school. And inevitably in every industry, there's this notion of going back to school to learn, to grow, to develop. So that could be a theme related to your clients. I always think about January and new beginnings, and it's a time to set goals for the year. So for my authors, it might be how do you get the book done in the year, or how do you get the blog posts done and checked off your list for the year. So thinking about the monthly calendar, relating it to your clients and your clients' needs, and then writing that. I mean, to me, part of the hardest part is just coming up with a theme or the idea. So once you have the theme or the idea, then taking a few minutes and jotting down some ideas. Let me give you some ideas about how I do this, because again, as I've said before, writing does not come easily for me. So how do I do it? Well, I keep a blog file. I have a separate file on my computer that's dedicated to blogs. And what I try to do is whenever I get an idea for a blog, first of all, in that notebook that I tell you I carry around all the time, I flesh out the idea. And a lot of times I'll get ideas if I'm attending a conference or a program or a learning program like this. I may take down ideas and I think, oh, I've got this great idea. Well, then I take it from my notebook and get the idea going in an electronic form. And I keep that, I file that in my blog folder. Now, I may not have everything fleshed out fully, but I may title it with the name, the working title, Thanksgiving or Acknowledgement, and then draft form. And then when it's final and I've cleaned it up and made it pretty and it's ready to be published, I may put final or some coding on that. So that is a way for you to start developing content as you think of ideas. And then what I do is if I have a plane ride coming up, maybe that's a perfect opportunity to flesh out those ideas or outline those ideas and get it to the next step. So you're not thinking about this as one big arduous task. It's a number of little small tasks that you can do over a period of time. So getting the idea outlined, getting more ideas, fleshing out that outline, writing the first draft, polishing the first draft, finally editing and putting it out there in the world. So thinking about it as a number of steps as opposed to sitting down and doing it all in one sitting. I don't think most of us can do that. And frankly, we're not very good editors when we do that. We also take way too long to write because we are trying to write perfect prose and make every sentence perfect and every sentence beautiful. And you really shouldn't write like that. You should just throw up on the page. You should just let the ideas go, write it all on the page, and then clean it up later so that you're writing and you're editing two separate functions that you do at two separate times. I've learned from brain science that very different brain energies that work on creative writing versus editing or writing. You shouldn't try to do both in the same steps, because you end up switching from one brain function to the other, which can be mentally exhausting. So if you are feeling exhausted after you've written a piece, it could be that you're trying too hard to write the perfect piece the first time, which just is not realistic. So just throw up on the page, get an ugly first draft, and then clean it up later. So those are some ideas to get you going. Another idea is I keep an Excel spreadsheet of, as I create new titles, new blog titles, and I have chunks of content. What I've found is that sometimes I've only published something once. And unless I've sold the rights to a magazine who has paid me for the sole rights, then I can use that piece again and again and again, because chances are, even though the readers of, let's say, HR magazine may have seen it, another HR publication or that same audience may not have seen it in a different venue, or they may have seen it months ago and have forgotten the content, and it's great to be reminded of the content. So I keep an Excel spreadsheet that shows the title and where I have actually published it. So if it's been published on my website, then I check it off. If it's been published on my newsletter, I check it off. I regularly do blog. I'm a guest blogger for some groups. I check it off there. If I've used it for LinkedIn, I check it, but those are all separate check marks. And you may want to, if you had an article, written an article or a post, you may want to use it here, and then several months later, use it in another place, and then several months later, use it in another place. And this allows you to remember where you've put it out there and how you've used it, so that you're getting maximum use for the energy of this hard work that we've done in writing this article. So repurposing your content. That's another thing that folks have asked me about. They said, you know, blog to book, isn't that sort of cheating? Aren't you really just, you know, using the same writing again? And it is using the same writing again, but it's totally permissible. There's nothing illegal or wrong about repurposing your writing. In fact, it's a very, very smart thing to do. So once you have written something well, then if you've used it as a blog post, you can use it again as part of your book. I wrote my blog to book as a blog to book. So many of those posts, those parts of chapters, started as a blog post, and then I put it all together in one book. And some of you may be saying, well, would people pay for that? Absolutely. Even though they may be fans and follow everything I do, they don't always read it all, and they don't always read it all at one time in one sitting, and to get all the information that they need to out of that writing. So it's really smart to take your blog posts and put them together. Similarly, if you're doing podcasts, same thing. I'm working with several authors right now who are really not going from blog to book, but are going from podcast to book. So they are taking the transcripts from their podcasts and they are putting those into a written piece. And there's lots of ways to do that as well. You can, once you get the transcripts, you can have each one stand on its own as a separate chapter, each podcast interview, or you might talk about themes and break them up and have pieces of these things. So the same content that you use for your blog posts can be used for podcasts, can be used for your book or other types of content that you share. For example, I'll share with you that I don't do podcasts, but I do regular master classes, and I have guests for those. because I can't know everything about writing and publishing and promoting your book. So I have guests that come on, and those guests provide fresh content because even I am always looking for content and good content that my clients want and need. But I'm looking for guests to provide that. And at some point, I could put that all together. And I hadn't even thought of this before, but I could put that all together and create a book highlighting my guests over these different master classes that I have put out. So what I want you to think about too is any content that you regularly share with your clients could be made into a book, into a workbook, into a blog or a series of blogs, articles, a class, an online course, and the list goes on and on. Because really, as entrepreneurs, yes, you are selling products and services, but you are basically the curators of your intellectual property. So especially for those of you who are working as speakers, as consultants, as coaches, but many of you too who are working in your area of expertise, you are really selling your intellectual property when you work with a client, when you work to solve a problem. And it's just thinking about all of the different ways that your client might want to consume your intellectual property. And I'll give you one other quick idea. And that is something that I just did. I have been doing a lot of programs such as this, and I find that I like to do a lot of the exercises similar to what we've done here today. And I found that my exercises and these are great tools. And everybody that writes up a little comment card after I do a presentation usually says, love the exercises, love the exercises. So I thought, what about creating a book that is filled with the exercises that I do? So I created a workbook that's titled My New Book, which is really about when you own it, this is your book. It contains your next book. It's exercises to help you move toward writing your book. So it starts with what is the book going to do for you and envisioning what that looks like. It has you creating a positioning statement. It has you creating a thesis statement for your book or for your body of work, whatever that might be. It has you identifying your target market. There's a number of different exercises there and so on. So I just want to let you know that not only is it available to you, because if you're thinking about writing and doing more writing, this might be a great tool for you, but it could be that creating a workbook might be the next best step for you in positioning with your clients and giving them some strategies. Now, let me share with you something that my publisher asked me. He said, Cathy, you're giving away all of your best exercises in this workbook. Is that something you want to do? Aren't you potentially diverting business that you could take? And I thought about that for a minute, because if I'm giving you all the tools to do it yourself, who's going to hire me? But what I've found is that by giving away more of, really I'm giving away all of the secret sauce in my books and my workbook and so forth. But by doing that, it helps my prospects say, wow, she's the one I want to work with, because I need help in applying all this to me. I can go through the book, but I may not be able to synthesize it or process it like I could if I was working with someone like Cathy. So that's what I want you to think about as well, is there a blog, a workbook, a series of exercises, or what is it that you might be able to offer to your clients? What I'd like to do now is wrap up my formal remarks and just say, I think that writing blogs, well, just writing is one of the best things you can do for your business. But would like to kind of wrap up my formal comments here and see if I can answer any questions for you. As you're putting your questions in the chat, though, let me just offer this to you. If you would like a one-on-one consultation with me, no strings attached. We'll talk about your book or your writing and what the next steps might be for you. I'd also love to tell you a little bit about my one-on-one coaching services. Just send me an email at Cathy@cathyfyock.com, Cathy@cathyfyock.com, and say, let's have a strategy session. And I'd love to set that up with you. So let me turn it over to David and see what kind of questions we might have and how I can address those for you.
Okay, I think that was great. We do have a couple of questions really quickly. Kalisa has a couple questions. She wants to know about generating ideas, like either for podcast content, which kind of falls right in this, or how would you use these ideas to design in her business like a life coaching course?
Yeah, really, it's all the same thing. In fact, I'm working with an author right now who develops online courses, and her book is on developing online courses. And I realized that in looking at her book and going through the content, it's not unlike what I do with my clients. It's thinking about all the questions your clients have about, and what do they come to you with? What is it how does she say her name? Kalisa?
I think it's Kalisa, yeah.
Kalisa, what are the questions that your clients come? What are the issues? What are the problems? What is your niche? And what kinds of, how might you orchestrate or organize those, categorize those different questions? And then those become the touch points for each of your podcasts or each of your blog posts or each of the content pieces that you put out there.
Yeah, good. Yeah, those questions, I mean, that was really powerful. I jotted a bunch of stuff down here in my 2 minutes. So that was a brilliant idea. I really appreciate that one.
Oh, good.
And I guess just to not put words in your mouth, but once you have all those questions, then basically you have a bunch of chapters in a book. Yes, and you have that many blog posts, and then there's your book, right?
That's it. One of the exercises in my new book is you first start with all the big questions, and then you might have some other questions, some questions that really fall under one question. And then you group them together. You also think about all the stories that you want to tell, all the illustrations that would speak to those questions. And I like to use Post-its and write all of the questions on a Post-it, write all of your stories, different story segments on Post-its, write other content pieces that you would want on Post-its, and then you start organizing those and grouping those and saying, oh yeah, this is all together for chapter 3, or this is chapter 6. And you start being able to organize your book that way by writing those questions and having those content pieces sorted and organized in a way that makes sense.
Yeah. Man, you make it sound so easy.
But it is hard work. I mean, conceptually, it really is pretty easy. The hard work is actually sitting down to do it.
Right. Exactly.
And that is the hard work. But that's where, I serve as an accountability partner for a lot of my clients, holding them accountable for what they say they're going to do, and to also help them through the hurdles. Sometimes the hurdle is not so much finding time, but it's getting over the junk in your head that says, who do you think you are? And you're not a good writer, or what do you know about that topic? And you got to talk back to the junk in your head.
Well, Cathy, I want to thank you for joining us today. This has been spectacular. And I encourage everyone to reach out to Cathy. She's a great resource. I've worked with her. If you have trouble writing, she helps you write better. She has all these writing exercises that we've seen, but ones where she really pushes you to write quickly and succinctly and get it all out there. And so, yeah, it's a little painful, a little bit of hard work, but it's well worth it. So reach out to Cathy, and we'll send you a recording of this later on today, so you can watch as many times as you like. And please join us again next week. Cathy, thank you so much as always. It's good to see you. And with that, we'll say goodbye to everybody. Have a good Wednesday, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you for joining today's webinar. At the Kentucky SBDC, we know small businesses are the heart of our economy. That's why our goal is to help business owners start, grow, and succeed in Kentucky. Find out more about how our no-cost business coaching, training, and resources can help your business. Visit us at KentuckySBDC.com.